Hey everyone, it's Karley Hall, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to make these Cricut drawn and cut Valentines for whoever you're making Valentines for this year. So I'll walk you through how to find the project and then modify it and cut it on your Cricut and then assemble it. So let's get started. For this project, you really only need a few things. So you'll need your machine cutting mat, so your sticky mat to hold down your material. And I'm just using cardstock, 8.5 by 11 white cardstock, but you can use whatever kind of cardstock you want to use, and you'll be able to fit 2 cards on each sheet of cardstock. So that will give you a good idea of how many sheets of cardstock you'll need depending on how many cards you're making. And then we will be using our Cricut to draw, so you either need a Cricut pen, and I'll link to the Cricut pens that I like, or you can use whatever pen you want, but you will need adapters. And if you don't know how to use the adapters, I will link to my video, but a pack of adapters is less than $10. So I will link to these, and then you can use whatever pen you want with your machine. So today I'll be using this ultra fine point Sharpie and this adapter. And lastly, you'll need your crayons, whatever brand crayons you want to fill your Valentines with. All right, so to get started, we are in Design Space and I'm on a blank canvas. And to find the project that I used, if you look on the left-hand side on this toolbar, there is this projects icon. Go ahead and click on that. And then at the top, right here where it says search projects, click there and type Valentine coloring crayon. And the first option is the one I used. And I do want to talk about this A icon. So this A indicates that it is included with an Access subscription. So if you're not an Access subscriber, you have a couple of options. You can either pay the cost of the project to cut it as many times as you want, or you can subscribe to Access for a month and then cancel it. Or if you haven't taken advantage of your free trial, you can activate your free trial and cut all of the projects within A for that trial period. So let me show you what that looks like. So if I click on this project, and right now I'm on an account that does not have an Access subscription. And you can see here that this project would cost me $8.95 to make it. So I can play around and design this project, and then it will charge me once I go to cut it. And I can cut it as many times as I want for the rest of however long Cricut exists once I pay this. This is not something that I have to pay over and over again. Okay, so now that that's explained, let me show you what it looks like in my account that I pay for Access with. So in this account, I have Access, and you can see down at the bottom that there's no price associated to it because it is included in my subscription. So I can click Customize or Make It, and I will not be charged since I'm already paid for Access. I will link to where you can purchase Access. It's $9.99 a month if you just want to pay for 1 month. So if you were to make this project and one other, it would pay for itself. So I will link it if that's something that you're interested in. And of course, if you don't want a subscription, you can pay the $8.95 and then you will be able to make it for as long as you own a Cricut. Again, it is not a one-time and you just get to make it once. You can make it as many times as you want every year if you wanted to. So I'm going to click Customize here. And like I mentioned, even if you don't have an Access subscription, you can still customize it. You will not be prompted to pay until you go to actually cut it out. So once you've opened your project, it will look like this. And this is the size that you want to keep it at because the holes will fit the crayon. So if you adjust the size, you will want to adjust the circles so that it fits a crayon when you go to assemble it. So you want to make sure that you leave the circles big enough so that it actually fits those crayons through the slots. So I'm going to leave the cards the exact same size. The only thing I'm going to do is edit it to add who it's to and from Karley. So to do that, you can choose whatever design you want, and you don't need to leave all of the designs on your canvas. If you want to delete some, you can. I'm going to leave all 3, and then I'll show you how to adjust that. So to add who it's to, you'll want to double click on the 2, and that will highlight it with a blue box around it. I like to use my arrow on my keypad, the right arrow, and I'm just going to click the right arrow to bring my cursor to the end of the word, and then I'm going to space and type out the name. You can use all caps or you can type it lowercase or sentence case, whatever you want. I'm going to do all caps for this example. And then I'm going to do this same thing, double click on the from, it will get the blue bounding box, use the right arrow to bring it to the end of the word and then type out my name in all caps. If you want to adjust the placement of the positioning of your names, I like to find the group. So over here, I just highlighted my entire Valentine. And then you can see here it says to Ryan and from Karley. I want to move that entire group. So I'm going to highlight the group and then using my arrows on my keyboard, I'm going to start positioning it to look the way that I want it to look. I can get fancy and use the align tools, but since this is for a simple Valentine, I'm just going to eyeball it. Once you're happy with the placement, we can move on to the next Valentine. So we're going to do the exact same thing. Double click on the 2, get the blue bounding box, arrow, space, and then to whoever it's to, and from Karley. Again, I'm going to move the group so that it's centered up. Just eyeballing it. Perfect. And one more time, double click on the 2, right arrow key on my keyboard, space, type out who it's to, and then the same thing with the from, double click on the from, highlight it, right arrow, space, type out my name. And then to adjust it, click on the group, and then just use my arrows on my keyboard to position it. So since we didn't change anything with the attached layers, we're ready to cut this out as is. But of course, you're probably making more than 3 invitations, so you may need to make a few copies. So to do that, if you want all of them, you can highlight everything. And then up at the top, if you want to use the duplicate option, you can click that there. And you will get a set of new Valentines. And then all we need to do is adjust the names. So I can click on just the 2 and we can start putting in the new names. So you can see how simple it is to adjust and add. And say you didn't want to cut out the different images, you could also delete whatever you don't want. So say I didn't want to use the owls, for example, I could delete those. To make your life a little easier, we are going to attach these together so that they fit on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. If you're using a 12 by 12, you don't necessarily have to do this step, but I'll show it to you so you can see the difference. So I have my 2 cards here and they're in one attached group. So I'm going to select both of them and then align them to the top so they're nice and aligned. Now they're even. And you can see that it's 9.98 by 6.84, which will fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So I'm going to attach those together. So while they're both highlighted, I'm just going to click attach. Let's save our project and then make it. We are going to adjust our material size on the left-hand side here for it to say 8.5 by 11. And now I want you to see what happens. So the 2 that I attached together are on one page and they rotated to be in the landscape view. But the other 2 that are not attached, they both went onto separate mats. So you can see that I can conserve material by attaching them together and they will go onto a single sheet of paper. If you forgot to attach, that's not the end of the world. You can go through and rotate them on your map preview screen and then move this one to the other mat. But you can see that that's a little time consuming, especially if you have a bunch of images that you need to arrange and fit onto different mats. So let me cancel out of that. And then let me show you what happens if I attach these together. Again, just highlight over both of the images I want to hold together. I can align them so that they're aligned nicely and then choose attach. And then now when I go to click make it, I have my material loaded on a mat and then I'm going to use 8.5 by 11. You can see that I'm only using 2 sheets of paper and they both automatically went on to a page with 2 Valentines. So if you have questions about that, drop them into the comments because I know that that is a little bit more complex, but it will help you save time and conserve material when you are going to actually make it. On this page, if you do not have access, you will be prompted to check out. If you click checkout, it will give you a rundown of what you're checking out with and what it's charging you for. So don't feel like if you click checkout, it will just start charging you. It will give you a breakdown of what you're paying for. And if you want to do that access subscription, I will put the link in the video description. Okay, so now we are ready to actually use our Cricut machine. So I'm going to click continue. For this project, I'm using medium cardstock, so I'm going to click on medium. And I like to always do more with this cardstock that I'm using. I'll put a link in the video description. It's such great cardstock. It prints beautifully and there's no texture, so it's actually really great to draw on as well. If you're making multiple, I would encourage you to click remember material settings, so then when this next mat is up, you'll be ready to go. It will already assign medium cardstock with more pressure to that mat as well. On this screen here, it tells you to load your pen in and your blade, so I will walk you through what that looks like. Okay, so here we are on the machine side, and like I mentioned, if you want to use a Cricut pen, you can go ahead and insert that into the tool holder that's marked with an A. So you'll place your pen in, and there is a triangle indication that you'll just push down, and you want that triangle to disappear into the holder, and then you'll just close it and you'll be set to go. If you don't want to use a Cricut pen and you want to use those adapters that I mentioned, I do have a full tutorial on this, but kind of just the abbreviated version. You'll pop out this white holder that is in the housing A, and just make sure that you don't lose that, place it aside. And then the holders that I like, they are marked with the different types of pens that you're using. So this one says SUFP on it, Sharpie Ultra Fine Point, which is this pen here. So I'm going to place the pen into the adapter, and then I'll place that into the machine and close the clamp. I already have my fine point installed, but just to get in the habit, I do like to check my blade to make sure there's no debris, and then I'll just go ahead and place that back in. I already have my cardstock loaded onto a standard grip mat, so it's loaded on, and I'm going to insert it under the guides, and while still holding against the rollers, I'm going to load it into my machine. Once your Cricut's ready, this button will start flashing, so go ahead and click that to start the drawing and cutting. So this part is a little slow. For my entire draw and cut, it took about 7 minutes for 2 Valentines, so 3.5 minutes per Valentine if you're trying to figure out how long you'll spend on this project. So we'll just let this run, and then I'll meet you back here once it's done. All right, so my project just finished. I'm going to take my pen out so that it doesn't dry up. The adapter set comes with so many adapters, so again, I'll link everything in the video description, but it's definitely worth the $10 or so investment. We'll start by unloading our mat. And then to unload your Valentines off of your mat, we'll want to flip it over and push your material away from your sticky mat and gently push them out. I have a little bit of a snag here, so I'm just going to gently tear that. My blade got stuck, which anytime something like this happens where your blade gets stuck, it may be time to replace your fine point blade, so I may need to do that. So for this, I would just trim it down and it would be no big deal, but you may want to make sure that your blade is still sharp and replace it if you need to. To clear off the debris on your mat, you'll remove your big pieces and then use a scraper to just scrape off all of these little cuts. And now you're ready to load the next one and start cutting it. And then we'll put in the crayons. So these are just regular crayons, but you can use whatever brand you want to use, and you just kind of pop up the sides and slip them in. So no adhesive or anything, it's just held in place with the little notches. So I'm just going to slide it in and you're good to go. How cute is that? And if you didn't want to edit the Valentines, you could even handwrite these in. But I do not like my handwriting, so of course I'm going to use my Cricut whenever I can. So here you can see that the Cricut added the names and then it drew out the image. So then when you go to give the Valentine, you can just color in the design and they'll have a cute little drawing that they can save. I think these are so cute, and I know that the cut and draw time is a little bit longer than a normal average project, but I do think that you can load in your machine, set a little timer, and then come back so you don't have to babysit your machine the entire time. So it's kind of like a set it and come back in 7 minutes and grab your project type of project. So not terrible. I will list everything that I used in today's video in the video description, and you'll have to let me know if you make this project for Valentine's Day. All right, I think that's everything. If you are looking for other tutorials, make sure to check out the additional Cricut tutorials and consider subscribing to my channel because I do post at least one new tutorial every single week. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video.